Honourable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. It's been nearly 5 years since we got dragged into one of the most daunting chapters of the world's economic history. We have seen institutions once considered too big to fail collapse, taking in their stride employees, businesses, governments. We have seen so many false dawns, and we got so little breathing space. The crisis kept reinventing itself, varying in depth and magnitude, rendering policymaking an even more challenging task. Many consider 2012 as a cornerstone in the process of recovery. But the crisis is not over yet. Business confidence remains globally low, consumer demand is anemic, and unemployment stands high while the Eurozone remains fragile. Nonetheless, a fourth successive year of growth in world output gives us a resolute case for optimism. The creative destruction forces have cleared the ground for the emergence of new wealth. In 2012, the Mauritian economy grew at 3.3%. The public sector deficit remained under control, but partly at the expense of major infrastructural projects. Unemployment keeps rising and has reached the 8% mark, while households' expenditure grew faster than their revenues, suggesting an increase in the level of their debt. Investment remains a cause for concern, as it fell from over 26% of GDP in 2009 to 23% of GDP in 2012. Worst, private sector investment contracted by nearly 4 points in 2012 to reach less than 77% of total investment. Investment in machinery and equipment is falling. We've been sailing through a storm in survival mode, but we are not sufficiently investing in our future. In the present situation, we can expect the growth to be slightly better in 2013. In any case, this is well below our potential, and it is definitely not enough to ensure full employment. The reforms of 2006 have brought significant results. The ease of doing business was vastly improved, and the unified tax regime gave us the confidence to commit further investment across all sectors of the economy. But 2006 was 7 years ago. 7 years with a lasting passage through an economic storm is a long time to remain resilient. This is no longer resilience. The situation had adapt or perish written all over, and we have adapted. Mauritian entrepreneurs have seized the few opportunities that subsisted and spared no effort to embrace the new economic order. But past successes do not predict future successes. We cannot afford favoring the short term at the expense of the long term. We must keep investing in infrastructure, as it has a direct impact on our long-term productivity. We cannot afford slowing down sectoral growth because of unavailability of skills. We need the best to compete, and we must encourage experienced professionals from overseas to settle in Mauritius. We cannot afford closing down our factories because of heavy rains or shortages in water supply. The uplifting of our water distribution network is long overdue. We cannot afford ranking 131st in terms of internet connection speed. We have to stand up to our promise of being a cyber island. We cannot afford eroding our competitiveness because of administrative bottlenecks, traffic jams, power cuts, or unreasonable increases in production costs. We cannot afford weakening our manufacturing sector. We are a nation of producers who need support to move up the value chain. Honourable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, these are a few things we can act on and that have a direct link with productivity and competitiveness. Much has been done, we must admit, but there is still much more to do. We are all to blame, and we must work hand in hand in a structured way, not just to solve current issues, but also to plan for the future. At the MCCI, we will continue engaging our members and policymakers. We will challenge the status quo. We will challenge policy orientations, just like we expect to be challenged. At the end of the day, we must continue working towards our common goal, which is development in its broad sense. The quality of our public-private sector dialogue has made our success. It is a great asset that needs to be pampered. Honourable Ministers, the MCCI is proud to work in close collaboration with your ministries. I wish to put on record our appreciation of this strong partnership, and I wish to thank you personally, as well as senior officials of your ministries, for your support and commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have many assets in our hands. We are small enough to remain agile and quick. We are open enough to attract talents and competencies. We are smart enough to maintain pristine diplomatic relationships with most countries. We are diverse enough to bring the best of the world to our shores. And finally, we are Mauritian enough to love our country and believe in it. Earlier this week, the MCI released its Business Confidence Indicator report for the first quarter of 2013. For the first time in a year, the index was positive for commerce, industry and services. This suggests that we have embarked on an ascending phase and allows some optimism for 2013. It will not be easy. It has never been. We must make the choice of doing things differently, set the foundation for a steady growth agenda, and lead our country to prosperity. We know there are solutions. We know that together we can overcome all obstacles. These are our values. This is who we are. Honourable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, before ending, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind the Assembly that Mr. Agm Mcci, Secretary General of MCI, has recently been elevated to the rank of Grand Officer of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean. GOSK, for his contribution in the fields of commerce and industry. This was indeed well deserved, and we are proud to be associated with this distinction. Unfortunately, Mahmoud is not with us today, but we'll have plenty of time to celebrate when he is back. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Cedric. I remember when I went to the MCCI the first time, I was talking to Mahmoud and he was telling me that we're going to be talking about the speech was back to the future, and I think we leave the past and we are going to embrace the future. But since we cannot equalize economic outcomes, we should try and reduce inequalities in opportunity. I think the message is that if we increase the ease of doing business, we can create a level playing field for each and every one, so that everybody can develop much more of an entrepreneurial spirit as opposed to what the state can do for you. On this note, I would like to invite the Honourable Minister of Enterprise and Cooperatives, Honourable Jang Bahadur Singh Sitaram, to make his address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raju. Honorable Dr. Alvin Bulel, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade, Honorable Kadir Said-Hussein, Minister of Industry, Commerce and Consumer Protection, Mr. Cedric Destreeville, the outgoing Chairman of the Mauritius Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Ganesh Ramalingam, the outgoing Vice Chairman of the MCCI, as I just mentioned, and all our distinguished guests who are present today. I believe that it is a very an excellent opportunity for all of us on the side of the government to share this moment with you, because we have to basically keep it in our mind that both of us, on the government side and also on the private sector, on your side, we are both working and striving towards the same goal. And that is, we have the same vision, that is for Mauritius, the Republic of Mauritius, to become prosperous and more successful, not only locally but internationally. And it is also in the interest of the business community and also the public at large that we work together, hand in hand. And I believe that I read recently with interest and satisfaction that the MCCI Business Confidence Indicator, where you noted a strong increase in the business confidence indicator for Mauritius in the first quarter of the year 2013. And the index rose by 6.2 points and has been established today 91.6 points. So I believe after consecutive declines, the results now show that there is a turnaround in the economic environment and that the economic performance will be better in the first quarter of 2013 comparatively to 2012. And I believe that's good news. Whereas I think that entrepreneurs, Mauritian and foreign, should indeed have much confidence in the business climate prevailing in Mauritius. Governing is all about anticipation. And this government did not fail in its mission. Under the effective leadership of our Prime Minister, we weathered every storm when the nastiest adverse global events prevailed. And now, in this time of economic recovery, we have all the reasons to be optimistic. For instance, Mauritius ranks itself 19th in the latest World Bank Doing Business report. And that's out of 185 economies. And the measures this government have put forward, I would say the last two budgets, both 2012 and 13, it only gives a boost, a real boost to the entrepreneurship sector in Mauritius. And we currently have 22 schemes who have been put forward to give this catalyst to our economy. And also, the contribution by those schemes to our entrepreneurship sector has really been successful, among which I would mention the SME Financing Guarantee Scheme, which has been a huge success, among the Leasing Equipment Modernization Scheme, the SME Debt Restructuring Scheme, among others. And being given that I'm talking about small and medium enterprises, this sector currently occupies 37% of the economy. And the estimation for 2015 is around 40%. So, with the collaboration of the private sector, among which MCCI has a pivotal role to, I believe, to implement. I am sure we can reach our goals very soon. And I would say that some of the worries expressed by the entrepreneurs, some of which have been interviewed by the MCCI during conducting your report, firstly was and has been the access to capital, where the government has put forward very, I should say, exceptional measures. And secondly, ferocious and often unfair competition, which are to the detriment of small and medium enterprises. And in regard to that, mostly the small, this government in the last budget has announced the Made in Mauritius, Made with Care label, which is to protect the handicraft sector. I would remind that everyone here that it declines from the Mauritius Sit and Plaisir label. And it is a project which is being implemented, and there would be a pilot project for that soon in June. And this gives the identity to the Mauritian small entrepreneur to better showcase his product locally and internationally. Because the big fear these days, and most worries that have been came across to me myself, that they are fearful of the fact that there are low, let's say, low-level products from outside being dumped, and also in the quest of fighting such, I believe the Made with Care label would basically give a real boost to our small and medium enterprises, further to protect them locally, and also to fight those cheap and low-quality goods from abroad. And further, like I mentioned, in regards to access to capital, the plan was to provide 1 billion every year for access to capital, and this target has been exceeded by 50%. So I would say that the schemes put forward have benefited the sector for the SMEs, and it is in my opinion that this government has set the tone for business to be at its top, for business to be easy, like we say in Mauritius, because if you look at all the investment that has been put across the island, it's no secret to anyone, the massive investment concerning public infrastructure. Even look at the road networks, all the facilities that has been given, and also the massive, I should say, constant investment concerning infrastructure. And secondly, we shouldn't forget that there is a new airport which is coming over, and this also adds to the ease of doing business, and it raises the hub, Mauritius as a hub for business. And also, we shouldn't forget that much more measures are coming forward, like renewable energy and others. So basically, the government is doing its job concerning to make Mauritius become a hub where business can be done more easier. And it is attractive, it is conducive for a good business environment. So on these words, I would thank everyone, and I would say good luck to all of us and good luck to MCCI. Thank you.
I think indeed, when you talk about ease of doing business, you can make a big difference in many small ways. So these are the little steps, the little administrative, rejigging, the little re-engineering that you do in terms of regulations that have such a profound effect on the way business is conducted. For 2013, the IMF expects world output to grow by 3.5% as a result of policy actions taken to curb risks in the euro area and the US, while some modest growth is expected in emerging markets. The World Bank, on the other hand, expects growth to amount to 2.4%, amongst latent uncertainty and lagging business confidence. Furthermore, downside risks exist on possible shocks to oil supply and rising inflation on the back of potential increases in commodity prices. I think just to say that, we are not immune, and we are operating in a networked environment, and trade is critical. Mauritius is a small island, as we all know. Market access is critical. But more importantly, I think there is so much interaction that maybe some of you don't realize that's happening in the background between the various ministries, the MCCI, the operators, so many committees. So a lot of work is being done. And the reason why I read that little extract from 1863 was basically it was the chamber talking to the government in those days. And exactly this is why we are honored today, that this relationship has gone strengthening year on year. And without that, it's very difficult for us as a small country, as a small nation, to really, make our place and make our voice heard, especially in international fora. It is now my pleasure to invite the Honorable Kader Saïd-Hussein, the Minister of Industry, Commerce and Consumer Protection, who was also a past president of the MCCI. Honorable Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Raju. My colleagues, Dr. the Honorable Avin Boulel, Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Trade and Regional Integration, Honorable Jim Sitaram, Minister of Business, Enterprise and Cooperatives, Mr. Cédric Duspéville, President of the Mauritius Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Ganesh Ramalingam, Vice President of the Chamber, Presidents and Chief Executive Officers of public and private sector institutions, Mr. Raju Jadoo, Secretary General Designate of the Chamber, Permanent Secretaries, members of the Chamber, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. I feel privileged, as I was last year, to be amongst you this morning on the occasion of, what did you say, Raju, 164th General Assembly of the Mauritius Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And indeed, it is again with a very special feeling that I stand here, because I still highly value the time that I spent with the Chamber as President a number of years ago, when I had the opportunity to interact and work with a dedicated team with the objective of promoting the vital objectives set forth by the institution. And I'm glad to note that the Chamber has continued to promote the interests of its members with commitment, zeal, and dynamism, and has been in the forefront on key national, regional, and international multilateral issues. And I wish to thank the Chamber for the collaboration that it has extended to government and to my ministry in particular, on fundamental strategic issues which are critical to the interests of the industry and trade sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, at national level, the Chamber has engaged itself with dedication on a certain number of activities, such as training, organization of national and regional workshops, information dissemination, and more importantly for us, partnering with government to develop strategies and policies for socio-economic development. And of course, the Chamber has spared no efforts to uphold with government our national economic and trade interests in regional and international fora, whether it be in SADC, COMESA, World Trade Organization, amongst others. I have noted with interest in the introduction made by our friend Mr. Raju Jadoo, quoting from that book, I think by Mr. Norbert Benoit. I'm happy to say that the initiative for this book was launched about 15 years ago. 15 years ago when I was president of the Chamber. I think I was vice president then. I think Derek Taylor was president. And when Jean-Claude Montocchio was still Secretary General of the Chamber. It has taken some time, but I think a very good product has come out of that. And as Mr. Jadoo has rightly said, the general parameters of the relations between government and the Chamber and business still comprise the same fundamental factors, although the interplay among these factors has changed. And we are no longer in the same scenario, probably some of you know about that, as we were in, I think that was back in 1927. The then colonial government invited a chamber, not this one, another chamber, to make propositions for ideas to improve the situation of the economy. And we can read in the proceedings of that chamber, in the minutes of proceedings, that was back in 1927, a member stood up and said, well, why does the government want propositions? We are the economy. Well, things have changed a little bit now, fortunately. And I think we can now call ourselves, this chamber and other chambers, other business associations, partners in development. And I have no doubt that the Mauritius Chamber of Commerce and Industry will continue to be not only a partner but a privileged partner of government to confront emerging challenges. In fact, the international trading and economic landscape continues to be characterized, as we know, by economic downturn in our major markets, stiffer competition, and new patterns of trade which altogether require, I think my colleague Minister Jim Sitaram mentioned that, greater competitiveness amongst our producers, including our small enterprises. The economic forecast in the global economy doesn't herald a positive turn of events, as the Eurozone is set to witness again difficult days in 2013, with what the IMF predicts to be an economic contraction of about 0.2%. And this crisis, unabated, continues to unravel new bailouts, which most of the time only just manage to avoid a crisis situation. Latest bailout, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, is Cyprus, another classic example of the fragility plaguing the zone, and especially the depth of its financial and economic problems, and which does not herald better days ahead in the short term. Unfortunately also, the impact of the Eurozone crisis on global investment and growth has already been visible with slower growths in emerging markets, emerging economies like India and China. The United States of America, another major market for our manufactured products, has not been able to shift to a more positive and optimistic economic trajectory, with a growth of about 2% forecast for this year. In this difficult global economic context, the economy of Mauritius has not experienced major setbacks, although we do recognize that the ripples of the economic downcast in our major markets have had some collateral negative impacts or collateral damage on our economic sectors. However, despite the dark clouds besetting our major markets, we have been able to achieve an economic growth exceeding 3% in 2012, while a forecast of 3.5% is generally believed to be achievable for 2013. At the same time, measures taken to sustain sound economic fundamentals in terms of prudent debt to GDP ratio, low budget deficits, and avoidance of high inflation have been successful to date. At micro level, the manufacturing sector is expected to record a growth rate of 2% in 2013, denoting its continued resilience. The export-oriented enterprises sector is forecast to maintain a positive growth of 2.6% for 2013. And we should also place on record the fact that the domestic manufacturing sector, despite increasing trade liberalization, has shown positive signs of development, with the gross total output expanding by 4.5% over the last 3 years. Exports of locally manufactured products have increased to 4.2 billion rupees in 2012 have increased from 3.2 billion in 2011 to 4.2 billion in 2012. That is a heavy increase, actually, substantial increase, exceeding 30%. I'm confident that the importance of the manufacturing sector to the economy would further improve as the sector graduates into more export-oriented production. And I believe that with improved product quality and the identification of new markets, the sector can aspire for exports worth or exceeding 10 billion rupees by 2020. Just like my colleague, Honorable Sitaram, I'm also very happy to note that the Business Climate Index published by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry shows a very clear progression, 6.2%, I think, if I remember well, and further shows that 30% of operators in the sample report a firming up of their business during the first quarter of 2013. Actually, in government, we know that we are doing a good job, sans fausse modestie. But we are comforted to note that not only we're doing a good job, but it is seen that the job that we're doing is reflecting on the development of business. And I do hope that we maintain, nurture, and further develop this symbiosis of trust and cooperation between business and government. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no denying that the positive economic developments in the region and in the emerging economies, through increasing market openings and economic expansion, have created new opportunities that we need to explore fully. I believe that the Africa strategy, as spelled out in our last budget, has all chances to deliver high dividends. The underlying factors of positive developments in Africa are already depicted by the continent's GDP, which has been growing at an annual average of over 5% over the last years. At the same time, we in Mauritius, business and government, and the other stakeholders, should spare no efforts to identify products which can be exported to specific African countries, taking into consideration the continent's increasing imports from the rest of the world. I also believe that we can aspire to position ourselves along an Asia-Africa corridor that is set to be developed through free port activities, as we are strategically located between the two continents. In this context, both the Board of Investment and Enterprise Mauritius are reviewing their marketing strategy to facilitate the presence of our enterprises in the region through 21 export promotion events. You may be aware also, ladies and gentlemen, that my ministry is implementing a project on energy efficiency and energy conservation in industries. This project involves training of 50 participants in energy auditing and management to promote a green industry and facilitate the process of adoption of best practices in energy auditing and management in the corporate culture enterprises. We are also implementing the 5th edition of the Mauritius Business Excellence Award, which has enabled participants to successfully integrate fundamental quality management systems in the operational framework. And I believe that this project will act as a catalyst to firm up best business practices in our economic sectors. As you may know, ladies and gentlemen, my ministry has emphasized closer collaboration with India, which took a new dimension with the visit of the Honorable Minister of Commerce, Industry and Textiles of the Republic of India, Honorable Anand Sharma, to Mauritius in January last. And as you know, Minister Anand Sharma pledged assistance in a number of areas, including the training of 1,000 textiles workers, 35 scholarship programs, and among others, the implementation of a program called Driving Industry Towards Sustainable Human Advancement, DISHA. We also discussed the provision of a tariff rate quota for apparel produced in Mauritius. And in fact, as a follow-up visit, my visit to India in February, I seized the opportunity to discuss the tariff rate quota issue on apparel, and I'm glad to announce that India has agreed to provide Mauritius, I think I've mentioned it already some time ago, with a tariff rate quota of 8 million pieces of garments annually, out of which 3 million pieces can be exported to India without rules of origin obligations. And we are right now in the process of finalizing the implementation modalities with the Indian authorities. My ministry intends to work closely with Mauritian, Indian and South African operators and investors in the textile sector to make the India-Mauritius-South Africa textiles corridor become a reality within the next 4 to 6 months. This initiative is supported by the governments of Mauritius and India, and I'm planning to meet the Honourable Minister of Trade and Industry of the Republic of South Africa, Honourable Rob Davies, by mid-April to enlist his adhesion and that of his government to this instance of South-South cooperation. My ministry is also collaborating with Indian authorities on working on the implementation modalities for the Disha program, which will entail certification of 10 enterprises to specific standards to be defined by the authorities. The ultimate objective of this program is to facilitate adherence to social and environmental norms compliance, which are increasingly required by major international buyers. In respect of the Commerce Division, ladies and gentlemen, my ministry, at the level of my ministry, a number of measures have been taken as follows. The preparation of a new consumer protection bill is nearing completion, and the bill will probably be introduced in Parliament by May this year. Training and technical assistance have been sought from friendly countries, foreign governments, to reinforce and improve the Consumer Protection Unit and the Legal Metrology Service. Ladies and gentlemen, in our business, yours being to create wealth and governments being to facilitate your creation of national wealth, I really believe that every day is a historical day, that every day is a beginning. I think I will echo the words of President Cédric Despéville if I say that every day we need to rethink our strategies and orientations. Every day we need to redefine our objectives, even if the ultimate goal in our mind is very clearly defined. I think every day we should make it mandatory for ourselves to visit the path between now and where we want to reach. Because if our national destination is clear to all of us, the way to get there may not be that clear. If we know where we want to reach, maybe we don't know exactly how to work together to get there. In other words, I strongly believe in the absolute necessity to permanently innovate. And I must confess that what I see, and this is no value judgment, ladies and gentlemen, I think what we can all see is not necessarily an ideal situation in our mustering for our future developments. For example, is our investment distribution and configuration adapted to challenges that we can clearly identify as being round the corner? Are we giving ourselves the means to generate enough viable business ideas to sustain the highly needed diversification of our economic setup? Don't we too often have the tendency to be happy with what we have, which is legitimate, but then rest a little bit too long on our laurels instead of thinking forward? Ladies and gentlemen, friends, I simply wish to invite all of us, the Chamber, and you, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Chamber, and ourselves at the level of government, to reflect on what we could call the relative inertia of our business dynamism, and try to forge ahead with the introduction of new modules of economic activity, to innovate, to revolutionize, even to dream, and to try to make these dreams come true. And indeed to continue to challenge, because it is only by challenging ourselves that we will all move forward. Before ending, ladies and gentlemen, I also wish to say a few words on our good friend Mr. Mahmoud Chirou, who we all know is unwell. And I also wish to place personally on record our deep appreciation of the contribution of Mr. Chirou, who has been associated with the Chamber for a very long time, and whose efforts, commitment, and dedication have been immense to enable the Chamber to fulfill its mandate successfully. We are also happy and proud that the honor of GOSK has been conferred upon our friend Mahmoud. And for that, I congratulate him, I congratulate his family, as well as the Chamber. And I wish him well. I would like to end on this note, ladies and gentlemen, by reiterating the full cooperation, the full will for cooperation between my ministry and the Mauritius Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And allow me to offer you, all of you, the Chamber and members, my very best wishes. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank the Honourable Minister for his kind words. But at the same time, I would like to put on record the quality and the depth of the interaction that the Chamber will have with his ministry, through the Permanent Secretary, through the technicians. I think it's really, I think this is what makes the difference in the country. You know, you're talking about expectations. I think predictability, consistency of policies is key. And without this great interaction, it's very difficult for business to operate. I would also like to mention that there are lots of people in the various ministries that are working tirelessly in terms of extending, well, not just extending, but not the geographic size of Mauritius, because we know what we are. But gradually we've moved to close to 2 million square kilometers in terms of economic exclusive zone. So Mauritius can be a small island, but it's a country with a huge potential. And when it comes to access to markets, I think there are some people in government that are working tirelessly, be it on the interim partnership agreement, be it on AGOA extension, be it on, you name it, be it on the tripartite. There hardly goes by a day when there isn't an initiative that is being driven either by the government in conjunction with the private sector. And I know that there's a lot of work that is going on in terms of creating some synergy within an integrated Africa strategy approach that is being led by very talented and experienced people. It's not people who just do the talk, but people who actually can walk the talk. When it comes to market access, it comes to our image internationally, I think it's always a pleasure to hear what is happening on the international front, and today we are very honored to have the Minister of Foreign Affairs amongst us. I would like to now call upon the Honourable Dr. Honourable Arvin Boulel, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration, International Trade, to address us. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I've never been so eloquently introduced. So I thank my good friend for doing justice to all of us. Let me thank our friends from the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I was a little bit worried because I couldn't understand why you were so pensive. Then I realized that after the good speech delivered by our good friend who has youth on his side, Mr. Cedric Spiville, because you've been called upon to rethink, which has been reinforced by my good colleague, Minister Saïd Hussein, you've been constantly in the mood of rethinking. After all, we are celebrating an anniversary, 164th birthday of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And we are here, free ministers who believe not only in the spirit and zeal of the private sector, but we believe in the strong synergy between public and private sector. Of course, to move the process, as we say, it has to be a three-legged stool. And we have to take on board our friends from the civil societies and the trade union. Let me again reiterate our pleasure to be here this morning for this great meeting of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And it's a chamber which has shown unwavering dedication to serve the local Mauritius business community, not only by defending the interests of its membership, but also by putting the country first. And I'm not going to highlight your contribution in all trade negotiation. Let me also add my voice to those who have put on record our appreciation for the positive contribution of Mr. Chiru, who has served the Chamber in his capacity of both Deputy Secretary General and Secretary General. And we avail of this opportunity yet again to welcome our good friend Raju Jadu, who likes challenges, not only challenges, but daunting challenges. And we have one of the best persons in this challenging position. Now, at the outset, it is important to underscore that the international trading context remains shrouded in uncertainty. The IMF has cut down its global growth forecast for 2013 after predicting slower recovery in the US, Britain, and key Eurozone economies. However, the world economy is expected to grow by 4.1% by 2013, as compared to 3.5% in 2012, but 0.1 point lower than what was forecast in October 2012. The Eurozone runs the risk of prolonged stagnation if the momentum for reform is not maintained. And the World Economic Outlook of the World Bank indicates that global economic growth in 2013 will be largely fueled by growth in emerging markets, including sub-Saharan Africa. Only some years ago, Africa was written off, considered to be a losing continent. And within a couple of years, it has become a rising and aspiring continent. While advanced economies are expected to grow by 1.4% in 2013, an average growth of 5.8% is projected for the sub-Saharan African region. Taking the above into consideration, government, as has been highlighted by my good friend Mr. Sitaram and reinforced by my good friend Minister Said Hussain, government is taking all relevant steps to consolidate our market share in our traditional market and to further diversify our export towards emerging economies, including, of course, Africa. Our export of miscellaneous manufactured goods to Europe have witnessed a slight setback, going down to 18.2 billion for the year 2011 as compared to 19.5 billion for the year 2010. With the crisis, people have less cash to spend and European households are tightening the ropes. However, our operators have demonstrated the right acumen by counterbalancing the above with enhanced visibility on the South African market. The SADC trade protocol has provided a predictable and secure environment. Our growth of exports towards South Africa has been on the upside since the SADC free trade area was launched in the year 2008. Exports of miscellaneous manufactured goods to South Africa have increased to 3.9 billion in the year 2011 as compared to 2.85 billion for the preceding year. The reinforcement, ladies and gentlemen, of trade ties at regional level is part of our overall economic development strategy as Africa presents an area of opportunities for our business operators, both in goods and services. Both SADC and COMESA are currently free trade areas, although for COMESA there are 3 members which have not yet joined the free trade area. Uganda has just joined the COMESA free trade area at the last COMESA summit. It is also worth noting that following intense pressure, Egypt has now adopted the same COMESA rules of origin as for all member states and has terminated its derogation of 45% value addition. Export to Africa now constitute 20% of our total export. More specifically, export to the COMESA region has witnessed a 12% increase in 2011 as compared to the preceding year. Export from Mauritius to SADC countries have witnessed a 20% increase over the same period, with a noticeable increase on the South African market. Another important development at the regional level relates to the COMESA, Eastern African Community, and SADC tripartite free trade area. Mauritius is a key player in advancing the tripartite agenda, which will eventually provide us with a large integrated market of nearly 600 million people. At present, the tripartite countries are in the process of negotiating the modalities for the tripartite FTA, which aim at harmonizing and synchronizing the rules under the free regional economic communities. The tripartite FTA negotiations are expected to be concluded by 2014. It is also worth mentioning the process at the Pan-African level to create an Africa-wide FTA has also witnessed some positive development. The AU Summit at its January 2012 meeting took the decision to establish a Pan-African FTA by 2017 using the regional free trade initiatives and the tripartite FTA as building blocks toward the attainment of the objective. The proposal of the Pan-African FTA was mooted by Mauritius at the 6th AU Trade Ministers meeting held in Kigali as a means to boosting intra-African trade. The establishment of the tripartite FTA in 2015 and the continental FTA in 2017, in which we actively engage in, will open up huge trade opportunities for Mauritius. In the short term, Mauritius and a group of 4 like-minded countries, namely Mozambique, Malawi, Seychelles, and Zambia, have started discussion to accelerate the pace of economic integration, tagged as the Accelerated Program for Economic Integration. The API countries aim to agree on a set of policy reform that would strengthen economic linkages and facilitate exchanges among themselves in priority areas relating to improvement of business regulatory environment, elimination of barriers to trade in goods, promotion of trade in services, improvement in trade facilitation, and capacity building. The Accelerated Program for Economic Integration, which met at ministerial level in Seychelles last week, has agreed to start the program of work in these priority areas in May 2013. The World Bank and other international donors have shown strong commitment to support this process, both financially and technically. My good friend, Honorable Kadir Sainderson, highlighted that following the meeting or the visit of the Minister responsible for Trade and Industry, Mr. Sharma, the decision was taken with the assistance of the Indian Ocean Rim Association Regional Conference to organize an environment and business-to-business conference to be held in July on the 4th and 5th. And it will be an opportunity now for all our entrepreneurs to interface on a one-to-one level with their business counterpart, and also to enter into dialogue with dialogue partners from different institutions. While focusing on the African market, our traditional partners still remains an important part of our trade equation. With respect to the EU, Mauritius is implementing the Interim Economic Partnership Agreement as from the 14th May 2012. Implementation of the Interim Economic Partnership Agreement provides legal security and predictability to our business community. Had Mauritius not signed the Interim Economic Partnership Agreement, we would have been downgraded to the generalized system of preferences of the EU in 2014, which is less preferential than the Interim Economic Partnership Agreement. In the absence of the Interim Economic Partnership Agreement, our key sectors, including textile, sugar, or canned tuna, would have been exposed to competitive pressure from other countries, mostly in Asia, as a result of a loss of preferences on the EU market. It is also worth noting that since the signing of the Interim Economic Partnership Agreement in 2009, exports from Mauritius have increased by 6 billion rupees on the EU market. Mauritius has registered export growth in some key sectors, such as fisheries, which have increased by 29%, article of precious stones by 28%, article of sport equipment by 25%. We are currently co-chairing the EP Implementation Committee with the EU, and we have agreed to host the second meeting in Mauritius to ensure participation from our private sector institutions. On the US market, an important milestone was reached in 2012, where the third country fabric provision was renewed in extremis 1 month before its expiry. Since gaining eligibility to the third country fabric provision in 2008, Mauritius has seen its apparel export grow by 24% in 2010 and by 21% in 2011. For the year 2012, we experienced a 1.78 growth, so that we are now the third largest agro exporter of apparel behind Kenya and Lesotho. Moreover, we also engage in a process of dialogue with the US under our TIFA, where a number of trade-related issues are presently under discussion, namely post-2015 agua, trade facilitation, trade in e-waste, amongst others. Mauritius remained committed to pursue its trade and investment strategies with the US under the TIFA platform, with the objective of increasing the visibility of Mauritius on the US market. With a view to diversifying our market, our exports, we are also identifying new markets. For the business community will be pleased to note that we have concluded an investment promotion protection agreement with Turkey, as well as a framework agreement on trade and economic cooperation. Mauritius and Turkey will also implement the free trade agreement this year, providing the possibility for Mauritian businessmen to enjoy preferential access on all industrial products and a list of 50 agricultural commodities. There is, of course, textile, denim, there is jewelry, articles of leather, tuna, pasta, flowers, fruits, and vegetables. It is to be noted that the FTA will provide access to large market, nearing 90 million people, with links to the Balkans and Europe, and we encourage the business community to tap this market. During my visit to Ankara last month, I also had the opportunity to discuss with several of the Turkish ministers and representatives of chambers of commerce. The Turkish side has shown a strong interest to team up with Mauritius businessmen in exporting to Africa. We are also engaged in consultation with Turkey regarding the possibility of having direct airlines between the two countries. This is expected to help Turkish tourists to Mauritius, as well as encourage trade between the two countries. The Turkish side has expressed a strong interest to use Mauritius as a shipping bunkering hub, using the maritime route between Australia and Brazil. One of the biggest business conglomerates, the Koch Group, will be willing to invest in the development of our maritime corridor. I understand that the BOI is in consultation with its relevant counterpart in identifying sectors for investment by the Turkish side. As an export-led economy, it is crucial that Mauritius adopt measures to reduce cargo dwell time, expedite the clearance of goods both at import and export, eliminate red tape, and provide a one-stop service to the business community, and by doing so, facilitate trade. At the level of the ministry, a comprehensive trade portal is being developed, which will provide detailed information to the business community on trade as well as the different requirements when exporting. It will also assist potential exporters in analyzing their market. When we speak of international trade, our objective is not just to leverage the balance of trade by juggling with arithmetical figures, but more importantly, to improve the standards of living of our people by exposing them to quality goods and services, and by creating opportunities of jobs and businesses for them. With all the constraints and challenges that we have to face as a small island, we cannot remain, as has been stated by all of us, in the same mindset of conventional trade policies that we have been following for several decades. We must now think in terms of designing a new generation of trade policies that will enable Mauritius to position itself better in the global economy and respond to the aspiration of our upcoming youth. In a nutshell, we need to work towards creating a new set of trade and economic policy framework that will enable Mauritius to harness economic gains from trade in services, the blue and green economy, biodiversity, and knowledge-based activities. This will have to hand in hand with policies relating to migration, mutual recognition of certificates, connectivity, commercial presence abroad, protection of property rights for innovation, scientific research and traditional knowledge, legal security for cross-border investment, and redesign of school curriculum with focus on innovative economy. The year 2012 has globally been a tough one on the economic and trade front. Nevertheless, we have managed to continue on the path of progress regarding our trade and economic diplomacy. And I like this sentence, which was said very casually, but with all the vigor by the chairman: pristine diplomatic relations. Formerly, we used to say that we should not punch above our weight, but I think I prefer the pristine diplomatic relations. And this is what we are doing, we will do, and carry on with being pristine. We need to uphold this tradition as never before to meet challenges awaiting us. And the challenges indeed are daunting and are many. Crisis will continue in 2013. Together, we need to identify opportunities and turn challenges, as we say, into opportunities in the difficult global economic climate, and devise the right strategies to avail of them. Only together can we sail through the turbulent waves of the global crisis and make the best out of it. It is an opportunity to develop new innovative sectors like the blue economy and explore new markets in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Together, we can do it. As we say, the geese are flying and they are looking for a soft landing station. Let us make our country an estuary for soft landing of the geese. This is a world where there's a need for global outsourcing with value addition let us be prepared. Constant skilling and reskilling our people, and we can only do so together with a convergence of mind and thought, and therefore I'll ask you to carry on rethinking. Thank you very much.
I think we have taken very good note of all the work that is being done at the international level, and it boils down to the Chamber, of course, to develop the tactics, the strategies, to be that conduit between what is being done internationally so that our economic operators, the business community at large, is properly informed about those opportunities, because there's so much work being done. And I know after having discussions with some of the people from the International Trade Division, said, look, I mean, we are doing all this work, but you guys should now, you need to be more proactive. And I said, yes, we hear you. But more importantly, I think there are also the enabling tools. The Minister talked about trade portal. There's also, from an export perspective, internally, there's a lot of work that is being done on the single window. So there are loads of initiatives that are ongoing as far as improvement in terms of trade facilitation and market access is concerned. I would like to thank the Honourable Ministers. I would like to thank our guests for taking time to be with us this morning. But I would also like to remind you that we are having housekeeping oblige our annual dinner on the 10th of April at the Maritime, where our guest speaker is going to be none other than the Secretary General of UNCTAD, Mr. Panich Supachai Panich Pakdi. At the same time, our chief guest is going to be the Honourable Prime Minister, who has agreed to be amongst us so that we can reinforce the public-private sector dialogue, which has always been the cornerstone of the Chamber. Well, thank you very much. We'll break for tea, and then we'll reconvene in 15 minutes or so for Chamber business. Thank you very much.